and welcome to the show. So, what's been happening? Boris Johnson has big plans for the nation.
Conservative MPs and party members are gathering in Manchester for the start of their annual conference.
The Prime Minister tells his party that he'll deal with the biggest issues that no government has had the guts to tackle.
So how did he do that? By talking utter shit.
What monkey glands are they applying in Ribble Valley? What royal jelly are they eating? Our wonderful nurses pulled my chestnuts out of that Tartarian pit. Cordroid cosmonauts, fibre optic vermicelli, coagulated roundabouts, cheek by jowler, raucous squawkus from the anti-Orcus caucus.
The country's on his arse, and he's taken acid and swallowed a dictionary. Did you hear what he said? Raucous, caucus, sausage porcus. It's like he's trying to remember his safe word. Ask your parents. Don't ask your parents, actually. But Boris is absurd. We've got a fuel crisis, and he's boasting about this.
Otters are returning to rivers from which they've been absent for decades.
Who needs petrol? We've got otters! You can't run a car on otters. Unless you've got loads of them on a leash. And they're dragging it. And sure, I'm not against that, but it's just not practical. You know, most of that are just down quick fit. Your problem, mate. You got a flat otter. Also, let's not muck around. The otters returned to rivers by themselves. It had nothing to do with Boris. He didn't seduce them back. Like some kind of otter Pied Piper, just covered in fish. Come to me, my pretties. And when he wasn't banging on about the animals of Farthing Wood, he just came up with meaningless slogans.
Build back butter, build back batter.
Build back burger.
Build back bitter.
Build back beaver, I say.
What are you talking about? Build back beaver? That's not useful. That's something a female sex robot would say.
Build back beaver. Back door battered. Burn my batteries.
Here's a slogan for you, Boris. Stop talking bollocks! We don't want slogans, we want answers. But whenever he's asked a tricky question, he deflects it by saying a normal word in a funny way. Listen to the way he says global.
Have you got 100% of your staff back behind their desks?
No, I don't.
What's your percentage?
It depends which...
I've got 100% back at LBC. What have you got?
Well, I congratulate you.
Yes.
I congratulate... And does that apply to the whole of global?
You can't pronounce something in a funny way to get out of trouble. No, officer, I haven't been drink-driven. I haven't even been to the pip. Oh, my otter's flat. But the trouble is, Boris Johnson does this all the time.
I have nothing to say about this matter except to offer you some tea. Flying frisbee. Blue. Passport. From Google. Dude. One crouton. Vegan sausage rolls. UFOs. Flapjacks.
And yeah, he's funny. There's no denying. But we don't need funny people in a crisis. They don't help. Nobody has ever been in a burning building and gone, quick! Someone get me a comedian! Grand's dying. Fetch Jimmy Carr! It's ridiculous. Boris just doesn't inspire confidence. I mean, look what he wore when he went jogging. Look at that! Who goes for a run wearing a smart shirt and brogues? He looks like he's just been caught banging someone's wife. Just... That's right, madam. And... Was it you? When he wasn't... Raucous, caucus, when... I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. When... Oh! Well, I can't look at you, I'm sorry about that. But when Boris wasn't running around like an alcoholic James Bond, he kept saying this.
Levelling up, 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 levelled up, levelling up.
But what does that mean? Even his supporters don't know.
What does levelling up mean?
Yeah.
As far as I understand it, it means giving everybody a fair crack of the whip.
Well, it means levelling up rather than levelling down, and there's a significant difference.
Yes, because up is here and down is there. And as you can see, they're very different places. Do you know the otters are back?
It's so exhausting. And the only reason Boris gets away with this, he's surrounded by people stupider than he is. Look at Kit Malthouse's response when asked if he was sitting near the Prime Minister.
Is he honest all the time?
In my experience, yes, he is.
Are you having to say that because he's sitting right next to you, Mr. Malthouse? Is it slightly...
No, I don't know. I have no idea
awkward?
where he is.
There he is.
I have no idea where he
There
is.
he is.
Still, at least the press held the Tories to account by asking them difficult questions.
Park run or half marathon, olives or nuts, jeans or cords, Waitrose or Asda, Strictly or I'm a Celebrity. Is a Jaffa cake a cake or a biscuit?
The answer is, of course, run, nuts, jeans, Tesco, neither, and who gives a fuck. We shouldn't be asking banal questions, particularly at a time when money is being taken away from people who need it most.
Since the start of the pandemic, almost 6 million people on universal credit have had an extra £20 a week to help some of the poorest families in the UK. But it comes to an end tomorrow.
Which is brutal because the universal credit cut will plunge 840,000 people into poverty, including almost 300,000 children. And what makes it worse, the day that the benefit cuts happened, the woman overseeing them, Therese Coffey, was at a karaoke night singing this. How insensitive is that? It's like walking past the food bank and going, did somebody say just eat? Think it through. The extra 20 quid is vital for some people. It could be the difference between heating or eating. It's always the same, isn't it? These people need to work harder, stop sponging off the state, which is pretty rich when you read headlines like this. Donor gave Boris Johnson 53 grand to decorate his flat, including £840 per roll wallpaper and a £9,800 sofa. There's also been allegations about who paid for his 15 grand Caribbean holiday and £27,000 worth of luxury food. Donors were even approached to cover the cost of a nanny and a personal trainer. All the while moaning that his £157,000 salary is not enough to get by on. All they need is an extra 20 quid. I thought he was levelling up, not punching down. Now, thank you. Now, talking of punching, who saw the fight of the century at the weekend?
Tyson Fury has knocked out Deontay Wilder to retain his title as WBC heavyweight champion of the world.
There's no more Deontay Wilder.
It was absolutely incredible, and I knew it was going to be, because the pre-fight trash talk was sensational. Wilder opened with this.
Tyson Fury, I'm going to be short, sweet and simple. This fight right here, you better be preparing. You better train your butt off as if your life depends on it, because your life depends on it.
Fury responded with his own poetic language.
I'm going to smash your fucking face in, you prick.
Pretty on the button.
I'm gonna smash your face in, you prick.
Can you imagine Fury responding to Muhammad Ali?
You're gonna float like a butterfly? Well, I'm gonna pull your wings off and shove them up your ass, mate.
He should be the new James Bond. Do you want to shake and not stirred?
No! I want a Stella, you twat.
Now, there's two things I loved about the fight. Number one, the crowd were in the background doing this. They were just, you'd see like blokes in the crowd, just kind of... And you're like, mate, you can't influence the fight. Nothing you do in the crowd is helping. You don't see my mum when she's watching Strictly like this. Join me after the break when I'll be chatting to my comedy hero, Billy Connolly!
I was filming in the Thames one day and a little punk guy showed me his penis ring.
Right.
He said you should get this. Prince Albert.
But, so hang on, so he said you should get this. That could have been interpreted in a very different way.
Yeah. Life can be dangerous.
Show. Now, my first guest tonight is quite simply one of the funniest human beings to walk the planet. Sir Billy Connolly is an actor, artist, and comedy legend. From humble beginnings as a welder turned folk singer in his native Scotland, he quickly found his calling as a stand-up comedian.
You ask a wildebeest. Are you a wildebeest? Oh, fuck, you kidding? Wildebeest, I'll be right. I'm one of them stripy things over there.
In a career spanning 5 decades, Billy has performed sell-out stand-up tours all over the world, provided endless iconic TV moments.
He says, is that her? He says, aye. He says, where'd you leave her bum sticking out for? He says, I need somewhere to park my bike.
And even found time to become a Hollywood movie star.
Now, no disrespect intended, sir, but shove it up your ass.
After a Parkinson's disease diagnosis in 2013, he's since stepped away from performing, but in that time he's become an artist, received a knighthood, and has just written and released his first ever autobiography, Windswept and Interesting. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean, you probably get this all the time, but you're my hero, so the very fact that I get to chat to you is mind-blowing.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it.
I really, really enjoyed the book, and I was listening to you in the bath, and it felt like I was sharing a bath with the funniest man in the world.
Great.
So thanks for that. Yeah. So we've had a bath together. And it's called Windswept and Interesting.
Yes.
For those that don't know, can you explain the concept of being windswept and interesting?
Yeah, I had velvet clothes on doing a gig, and a friend of mine said to me, oh, you look all windswept and interesting. And I loved it. I adopted it as my byword.
And can anyone become windswept and interesting?
Yes, you can become windswept and interesting. All you need to do is don't give a toss.
What I love about you, reading the book, is you have such a fondness for such an array of things. Snow globes, curry, nipple rings. Like,
Yes.
have you always had this kind of,
Yes.
fondness of slightly strange things?
I've always been out there.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't feel out there when you're there. It feels perfectly normal.
What does it feel like to have the nipple piercing? What is that like?
It was the best. It's the best high you'll ever have.
Really?
Needle goes in. Yeah, it's like being struck by lightning.
Yeah.
I was high for days.
Given that it gave you such a high, were you sort of tempted to kind of go nipple, sort of penis, really sort of mix it up and see what we can do?
I was filming in the Thames one day and a little punk guy showed me his penis ring.
Right.
He said you should get this. Prince Albert.
But, so hang on, so he said you should get this. That could have been interpreted in a very different way.
Yeah. Life can be dangerous.
Now, you have a chapter in the book called Misbehaving in Public. It's about how much you miss human contact. And as such a people person, I was wondering how you've got on during the pandemic, not being able to be with people.
I found it amazingly good, amazingly healthy.
Really?
Well, the family were all stuck in the house and we had to get along. And not that it was any trouble. My wife's laughing. We had to get along. It's just it was absolutely on the board that you must get along now. And it's a prison sentence, it's a year. And we had to do it, and it was easy. We've all got along. And I do nothing. I do absolutely nothing because I'm the sick man. They make my dinner and make my bed.
Yeah,
Everybody was happy. It was great.
So in a sense, it was wonderful for you because you were just surrounded by people you love, led in bed watching telly.
Absolutely.
Now, I wanted to go through, if it's possible, the absolutely fantastic rules you have for being windswept and interesting, because they're beautiful. They're like little mantras for life. The first is you have to genuinely not give a fuck for what any other living human being thinks of you.
That's hard. Because you internally give a fuck. You naturally give a fuck. But you have to work at not giving a fuck.
How do you work at that, do you think?
Yeah, you just convince yourself that you're on the right track.
Yeah, right. And I love this. Say the first thing that comes into your mind and don't worry about what might happen to you as a result.
That's right.
Because but presumably what that gives you as a performer is that's why you've had such authenticity and such humour.
You're judged on the way you do it. You're not judged on the thing itself. You're judged on the fact that you stood there and said it.
Did you ever feel like you had to tone down as a performer? Did you ever feel pressure?
Yeah, but it soon wore off.
Yeah.
You can't watch it and be funny. You can't watch yourself and guard yourself that way and still be funny. You have to go for it.
She's walking along Argyle Street, there's loads of traffic. Tram cars, motorcycles, and she sees a child running across the street. My God! She puts her shopping bag down, away onto the street, grabs the child, runs to the pavement. But it's a wee man. Fuck off.
Being incorrect is funny. When you're not a comedian, when you're just a guy working in a factory or doing whatever you do, and your mates tell stories. They talk about things you would never talk about on the stage.
Yeah, but what's really fascinating, we have this sort of strange situation at the minute where comedians are being reviewed like presidents, and presidents can get away with doing whatever they want.
Absolutely.
And this is the one I really love. Seek the company of people who, when left alone in a room with a tea cosy, will always try it on.
That's right.
Do you know what I remember?
I thought I was mentally ill when I was a wee boy, because as soon as I got to her house, I used to put the tea cosy on.
What I love about that is I have a really vivid memory of seeing you do that story on TV and feeling like part of the gang because I had done that and my mum had done that, and we'd all, without ever telling each other, we'd done this little thing, and it's like you were in the corner. You kind of brought my family together. It was an unbelievable moment of respite and silliness and connection.
That's lovely. That'll happen more and more.
I wondered with stuff like that, were you aware of the importance that people in Britain felt for you?
No, I wasn't until I come off the stage. Till I stopped doing concerts. And there was such a payback from the audience. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that people had liked me that much.
They adored you, yeah.
Breathtaking. It's quite frightening. You don't know what to do about it.
Because I was at those last shows that you did at the Hammersmith Apollo. Me and my dad came to watch you. And it was, what struck me is, being as you've been such a physical comic down the years, because of your health issues, you were still, and yet still unbelievably brilliant. I couldn't believe how funny you were stationary as you had been kind of prowling around. It was the best.
You're only doing that because I'm not well. I've got Parkinson's disease, and I wish he fucking kept it to himself, but there you go.
Do you miss the travelling and doing stand-up?
I sometimes think I do. I sometimes wonder why I'm not going anywhere, but I don't miss it.
That surprises me. What don't you miss about it?
I used to love walking on the stage and getting that feeling that you're somebody else. You're not nervous anymore, and you just go and become this person, and it flies. And then you come off at the end, and it's lovely.
Where were your favourite places to perform as a stand-up?
I love Australia. I love performing at Sydney Opera House. I hold the record for 50 nights sold out.
Amazing. What about, I've always found Irish crowds as well were
Irish are brilliant. Scottish are great. Anywhere the living's hard, the audience is great.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, eh? What I love most about performing in those kind of strange places, I remember doing a gig in Australia, and there was a shop that was selling bongs, you know, like for hash.
Yeah.
Also, they were selling unicycles. And I just thought that was the best combination of just... Do you know what I mean? Of who smokes weed and thinks, I fancy riding a unicycle, that'll do.
I saw a store once, and it's made me smile for years. It was in Minnesota, and there was a shop in the street that said so-and-so, so-and-so, cheese and souvenirs. And it has made me laugh for years. I don't know why.
I am eternally grateful that we've been able to have this chat. It really means the world to me. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It's been a pleasure.
A real joy. What's the rest of your day looking like? What have you got on?
Nothing.
Fantastic. Well, there you go. Well, hopefully we'll cross paths.
Are you from Bath?
I am. I was born in Bristol.
I used to have such great fun in Bath.
Oh, it's the best, isn't it? What did you love about it?
Well, we used to go out and get drunk in the Beehive.
I know the Beehive very well. Yeah. Did you know where we should go? There's a pub called Tucker's Grave where the door opens on to the road. That's why it's called Tucker's Grave. And they have a cider that is thick and orangey. You know when you see like someone that's still that fake tan on, it's that kind of really... And I remember an uncle of mine when I was about 7 at a family party holding this pint up in front of me and going, I could drink 3 of these, kill you, and not know I'd done it. You know, there's a bloke that goes there with a rat on his shoulder.
I used
and
to
the
go
rat
to a
sips
pub in
from his
Glasgow
pint.
where thieves went and sold their stuff. And I remember going in for a pee to the toilet, and there was a guy being measured for a coat. Standing with his arms out, being measured with a tape measure, and taking his details. We do it in blue and brown. Would you like the collar, right? They would steal him to measure.
Those kind of pubs don't exist as much as they used to now. Those kind of
They don't.
wild
It's
places.
a sad thing.
You just need a little bit of devilment in your life every so often. But yeah, let's do it. If you're in Bath, then I would absolutely love to take you down Tucker's Grave.
Great.
Awesome. Take care, my friend.
Nice talking
thanks so much
to you.
for that. Take care, mate. The wonderful. It's like warming yourself around a fire. You could just spend hours with that man. Absolute joy. Now it's time for life lessons. And this week I asked the comedians what the most embarrassing thing that they've ever cried about was.
The most embarrassing thing that made me cry is a plot line in a porno that's never resolved because it's ruined by the heavy pounding. Did that fake taxi ever get to its destination?
I find it kind of sad when I see people eating their lunch on a bench. It's pitiful. Why? Let them eat their fucking lunch. I find it's patronising. Yeah, I know.
Did that stepdaughter ever resolve her relationship with her stepdad?
A dog had its eye out on TV, and the way that the dog recovered from it without having to make a big thing out of it or like raise awareness, I just found it like very profoundly moving, the way dogs just get on with life.
Did that fridge ever get repaired?
I'll be honest with you, I never cried. I had this low-key persona from birth. I came out and they smacked my bum and I was just like, cool, innit? The start of this little life situation.
I didn't realise there was a face on the moon, and I saw it, someone was like, oh yeah, there's a face on the moon, and I was like, no, there's not, and then they went, yes, there is, and they went, it's like this. And then once you see the face, you can't not see it, And then I started crying because he looks so sad. He looks like he's falling to earth going, no! And then I got really sad about why he looks like that, and it's because the moon's seen everything. Like, he's seen...
And he's still watching?
He's still watching. He can't look away is the worst thing. Like, he's seen, like, what happened to the dinosaurs. He just watched them all get wiped out. He saw, like, the Somme. He was just watching. He couldn't do anything about it.
Blink 182?
Yeah. Can't say Blink 182 because the lead singer's got cancer.
Well, still shit.
Did that babysitter ever get a pay rise?
Join me after the break when I'll be chatting to the beloved comedian and actor Isy Suttie about her debut novel.
Everyone's wee smells when they have asparagus.
Yes.
But only people with the superpower can smell the asparagus.
Right.
So we both weed into Chinese takeaway cartons.
Hello and welcome back to the show. My final guest tonight has mastered comedy, music, acting, podcasting and has now written her first novel. Isy Suttie is an award-winning comedian, writer, musician and actress. Bursting onto the scene in 2003, Isy soon became known for her portrayal of IT nerd Dobby in the cult sitcom Peep Show.
Eat my phone, baby! Eat it up!
Since then, she's been a regular on our screens, appearing in hit shows such as Damned and Man Down. And now, she brings us her debut novel, Jane is Trying. Please welcome the wonderful Isy Suttie! Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be in front of people.
Is this kind of the first sort of performance you've done? Were you kind of performing during lockdown, or...?
I've done a few, but I still feel that buzz of, like, not being in front of a computer, just staring at my own face.
And you're here mainly to chat about the book. This is your first novel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my first novel.
Jane is Trying.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. What's it about?
It's about a woman called Jane who is happily engaged, so she thinks, working in London in advertising, quite a high-powered job, really. And then they're trying for a baby. Then she finds out that her partner, who's a little bit pathetic but quite lovable, has been cheating on her. And she is whisked away back to the Midlands, and she moves back into her childhood home, and her parents sort of mean well, but they're quite mollycoddling.
Yeah.
And it's about, I suppose, a lot of stuff happens to her then, and it's about whether she thinks she can stand on her own 2 feet, I suppose.
Right, OK. And is it... I mean, it doesn't sound completely like your life. It feels like an imagining of your life if it went badly. Do you know what I mean?
It is a bit like that. Like, she's similar to me in some ways, and the mum in it is very similar to mine.
Right.
The mum in it is like, Jane! The mum's really anxious, and, like, whenever she sees Jane, she's like, oh, gosh, you've got a new mole on your shoulder, you might have cancer. Like, just kind of really full on. And when I gave it to mum, I was like, I don't want you to think that you're like the mum in it, thinking you are totally like the mum in it. I said, look, Mum, when I do press for this, I'm going to say you're like the mum, but you're only a bit like the mum. And she went, oh, I think I'm totally like the mum. And I was like, great, it's come from your mouth. And then she was like, I almost feel like I wrote the book. And I was like, hang on, mate.
Yeah. And did it find you sort of revisiting old memories to kind of evoke Matlock, or like a version of that in your head?
Yeah, like, I've got a lot of love for Matlock, which is where I grew up. But then I did remember loads of things, because there's a lot of things set in the park in Jane is Trying.
Yeah.
And loads of things happened in the park.
Parks are amazing when you're a kid, eh?
Oh my God, it's the whole universe, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's where you go to drink Diamond. Why? It's...
Bandstands as
yeah.
well.
Yeah. In fact, she brings him from the bandstand.
Oh, right, nice.
And I've done so many things in that bandstand.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Weird. It's like your version of a nightclub, isn't it?
No, it is, but yeah.
You can't actually go into one.
I wonder if kids are like that anymore, but is that sort of like... So when you go past a graveyard, you're like, been wanked off in that?
Yeah, so I actually went back to Matlock when I was writing this book to kind of, like, go with my old best mates round all our local haunts. And I remembered when we got to this bridge that I'd jumped off it for a £1 bet to try and get out of my maths exam.
And what happened?
Well, so the water was a lot shallower than it looked because it was raining. It looked really deep, and I was like, I'll just swim to the side. I've got my bronze swimming certificate. I landed, the water was actually really shallow. I landed with my left foot at right angles to my ankle, and it was a clean break. Yeah. In fact, it made that noise.
Yeah.
And I had bright red hair then, because I used to dye it with henna. And I put my head up, and my hair was all in my eyes because it was wet. And I was like, I've gone blind, my eyes are bleeding. And then I was like, oh no, it's just my hair. But then I was like, I can't walk. I actually can't fucking walk.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did you do the maths exam? You didn't do it. There you go. So technically,
actually,
quid up.
A quid up.
Cool broken ankle.
So I was going out with a skateboarder. It's very useful to be going out with a skateboarder if you're going to jump off a bridge and break your ankle. He wheeled me home on the skateboard.
Didn't think to call somebody, just wheel you home like that. Amazing.
Yeah.
And also, when you were a kid, you ran a love agency, is that right?
Yeah, I ran this dating agency when I was like 12. And
what would you do?
So my mates would commission me to write love songs about boys they fancied.
Commission. Great word. Just 12-year-olds. So I'm commissioning you for the... So what, they'd say, like, I fancy Dave.
Yeah, so I fancied him. Sometimes it was boys from another school, so I'd be like, what does he look like? Tell me 3 facts about him. And then I'd write this song from, like, her point of view. And then the idea was, on a cassette tape, I'd teach her the song, I'd play guitar, she'd sing this love song to him, and then he'd fall in love with her. And we always used to follow it with a B-side of Everything I Do It For You by Bryan Adams. And then we'd just, like, put the cassette tape into the boys' bag.
Do you ever sort of remember those songs?
For sure. Like, so there were 2 boys called Sam and Jack who were best mates, who me and my best mate Joe fancied, because it's really important, isn't it, when you're 12 or 13 to fancy 2 best mates if you've got a best mate, 'cause it's just easier. And we sort of swapped between us as to who fancied who, but I remember this...
Very modern, yeah.
Yeah. I remember the song that I wrote about Jack, because this was the least successful song, actually, of all of them that I wrote.
OK.
Yeah. So imagine that you're called Jack March. Everyone, imagine your name is Jack March. What would you have done if you'd opened your school bag and found the tape containing this song? Jack, 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 Jack March. Just so he was sure it was for him. Jack March! Jack, I really love your blonde hair. It's enough to make people stare. Jack, I really hate it when you give me a glare. Why can't we be a pair? Jack, 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 Jack March. Jack March! Jack, I really love your lovely mouth. I wonder, is it facing north or south? It would be sweet if it was facing south. Even better if it was facing my mouth. That's it.
That's the end. Wow. And have you, like, with your partner, Ellis, who, in case anyone doesn't know, is the fantastic Ellis James, who does a radio show with John Robbins. He's a fantastic stand-up. But so, are there any sort of stories with you and Ellis that are like you going, we can't fucking tell anyone that?
Oh, there is.
Do you know what I mean? Or
yeah.
Does he have those moments where you do something romantic and you're like, that's between us?
Well, I don't know if this counts as romantic, but... OK, so with asparagus and wee... so, apparently... So does your wee smell when you have asparagus?
Yeah, so asparagus and sugar puffs, weirdly.
They actually smell quite similar, asparagus and sugar puffs.
Yeah,
like
but they, like, genuinely, they're very strange bedfellows from a sort of a urine point of view.
Wow.
But go on, so...
So with asparagus, so you've got the superpower then, so have I.
I don't know if that'd get me in the X-Men, but... What do you mean the superpower? Isn't that...
So, everyone's wee smells when they have asparagus.
Yes.
But only people with the superpower can smell the asparagus.
Right.
Whereas I thought that only certain people's wee smelt from asparagus. So we both weed into receptacles, Chinese takeaway cartons.
Was this... Hang on, was this during lockdown?
Yeah.
Fuck it. Excellent.
And then the idea was we'd see if we could smell the asparagus.
Yeah.
So I smelt both specimens and could smell asparagus in both of them.
Yeah.
And he smelt both of them and he couldn't.
Wow. What time during the day did you do this?
It was about midnight.
Yeah. And
it would be so weird to do it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's what I mean, but it's... This is clearly a strange thing to be talking about. But I can sense that everyone here is thinking, I'm going to try that. Ladies and gentlemen, please give up the fantastic Isy Suttie! Finally tonight, it's good deeds and a rugby club that is achieving results way beyond the pitch.
Hi, I'm David, chairman of the Bristol Bisons. We helped stop the deportation of one of our members who faced persecution in Kenya for his sexuality. Bristol Bisons was set up in 2005, because I think the founding members didn't really feel that there was a space for them in rugby around Bristol. There wasn't an inclusive gay rugby space for them. The ethos of the Bristol Bisons is really straightforward. It's inclusive rugby for all. It doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, what your ability level is at rugby, and as long as you're willing to come to training and be part of that ethos, then we will take you. Ken's been a really important part of the Bisons for a number of years, as he's been the official club photographer. He's regularly at training, cheering people on. Even if he's not picked for the teams, he's there at the matches, cheering people on. He played everything by the book when he came here, and then suddenly to be faced with deportation was really a bitter pill to swallow for the team.
I've been living in the UK since 2009. I came to study for a master's in mechanical engineering. Came from Kenya, where same-sex intimacy is illegal, and there are things like mob justice getting beaten up, so I would have had to hide who I was. The Bisons is a place to be open, and they helped me be more confident and enjoy life more. The Home Office had raised salary requirements for me to renew my work visa, and then that's when I came to face the daunting task of having to go back to Kenya, go back into the closet.
We felt like there was nobody sort of backing him up, so it had to be us. We decided as a club that we had to do something or keep Ken home, keep Ken in this country. We posted on our little Facebook page with 2,000 followers, and then people were sharing it all over Facebook, and all of a sudden we had 180,000 people behind us, and it was incredible.
And then as a team, we also supported Ken when he was signing in regularly at the police station, just to try and avoid any situation where he was unexpectedly detained and whisked off. Ken was able to engage a solicitor on his behalf and essentially get his asylum application granted.
Living in insecurity for a long time was creating a lot of mental stress, so that was a big relief that I can finally relax. The Bristol Bisons are a wonderful team, just a wonderful bunch of friends.
There was so much relief, so much happiness. We call ourselves the Bisons, we are a herd. Rugby is an inclusive sport, it's a sport for everyone, and so just get out there and try it.
Lovely stuff. Thanks so much for watching the show. Good night, my friends. Good night.